Sure.
What they're doing. There we go. Oh, no. Thank What's the goal?
Less government is not okay. Just less government on all levels. And make
I get him to come up here.
I want to say a humble thank you to everybody who has come out today. I mean, it is a cold day outside to be out here in the freezing cold. I mean, I wish yesterday was today.
Yeah.
But I tell you what a great thing to see so many people involved, desiring to see a change in the government of the United States of America. It seems like we have lost track with what we had started in the very beginning. It seems like we've lost the original vision for our nation. And you've been hearing this coming from AM radio at you. How many here listen to AM radio? We've seen this coming at us from network news, but they give us different stories. It all depends who you listen to. Can anybody testify to that? I want to thank Jai Blevins for putting on this event. I know that he's not the only one who was involved, and many people were involved, so give a hand to everyone who put this together right now. It's such an honor to be speaking to people who understand the times. You know, I don't know how many Christians we have here, but the Bible speaks specifically to this when it says that the men of Issachar understood the times. And we need people, we need men, we need women who understand the times, because we are living in a very unique situation in all of world history. Never has there been a nation that has been so greatly indebted as the United States of America. We have went in 3 decades from being the world's greatest creditor nation to the world's greatest debtor nation in 3 decades. In 3 decades, it's happened. And we're seeing a progression towards worse and worse and worse, even until the point last year when George W. Bush had admitted in a CNN interview that he had to forsake free market principles because the free market system had failed. Jay had mentioned that I'm an economist. I had the privilege of studying over at the University of Tulsa, and I want to thank again all the people who were involved in putting this together. The new book that Jay had alluded to was called Bankruptcy of Our Nation. It'll be available in all the stores, and I'm not here to plug the book necessarily. I'm here to get excited about what you guys are excited about, really. But Bankruptcy of Our Nation is the name of the book. I also lead the Veritas Theology Forum here in Tulsa that meets every Friday night at 7 p.m. at 3633 South Yale. We talk about this stuff there from a biblical perspective, and I encourage you to be there. If you want to learn more about what's happening from a biblical perspective, I encourage you to be there. 36 in Yale. In fact, the next meeting is tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to be praying about this very specific topic. I can recall that not too long ago, that when I used to speak about this, before it became over-politicized, that people were able to understand the issues that we were grappling with. The problem is that economics is not inherently a political issue. It is not a political issue, but it becomes over-politicized because Democrats and Republicans both want to be right. And what has occurred now, that what we see is that economics has become so polarizing and it's become such a political issue that the true real issues have gone to the bottom, and now all of a sudden it's a matter of who's right, Republicans or Democrats. Is it conservative or is it liberal? And it's so much deeper than that. If that is where this argument ends, we lose. We lose if that's the end of the argument. That is not the argument today. The argument is, why do we allow a private bank to issue currency, and do we pay interest on a currency when it's unconstitutional? The Constitution only allows one entity to create money, and who is that? The Congress. but it has been derelict in its duties, and it's outsourced this ability to print money. And actually, the Constitution only gives it permission to coin money, not to print money, but it is outsourced this printing of money to a private central bank. This is exactly what Andrew Jackson, during his tenure, tried to destroy. Remember the Second Bank of the United States? Remember the quote that he says, "By the eternal God, I will rout you out, you den of vipers." And he goes head to head with the Second Bank of the United States because they were trying to cripple and bring down the United States of America through bad monetary policy. This is exactly where we are now. How many of you think that the Fed needs to end? I'm confident that this small gathering here at Veterans Park, that we can have great things come out of this. We have a responsibility as American citizens to understand the economic problems that we're facing. This morning you've gathered because you're angry at the government. You're angry at them because of their foolish spending. You're here because you want to make your voice heard. If you do, say yes. You're here because you want to make a difference in your own personal economic lives. And even more importantly, and this is the most precious thing of all, you're here because you want to protect the economic futures of your children and of your grandchildren. Those who are too young to speak for themselves. Those who cannot protect themselves. You are here to protect them. And because of that, you're willing to make a sacrifice. And that word sacrifice has not been uttered by any politician in the last 30 years. Who was the very last person who got up into a podium and said this? You need to stop spending so much money. Who's the last politician who got up and said you need to save more money? They're not even telling us that now. The economy is crashing and burning, and what are they doing? They're mailing us checks and saying spend. If we want to maintain momentum, this crowd is great. Speeches are great. Protests, fine. But if we want this to last, if we want to make an impacting change, then what we have to do is we have to grapple and understand the times, and we have to understand the issues. And many times the issues are disguised and they're politicized, and you can't clearly see what the issues are. Today we're facing a terrible enemy. The enemy is great, it's large, it lurks in the shadows, it's not easily seen, it is hidden. Victory is not going to be swift, and it's not going to come easy. It will require vast amounts of energy. It will require vast amounts of capital. It's going to require vast amounts of resources and vast amounts of time. And that's the good news. Now the bad news is, as we say in my former state of Texas, the good old days. Bad news is, these are the good old days. I want you to consider this. What we have now in America, the blessings that we have, the economy that we have, may never be this good again. And let me go through and explain to you. You say, is this a good economy? How can this guy say this is a good economy? This is a fantastic economy. Let me show you why. And this is the bad news that we need to confront. Even in the tumultuous economic situation we find ourselves in right now, foreigners, Chinese and Indians and all these, they are still buying our government debt. They are still choosing to buy our government debt. That's a very good thing. What happens when they stop buying our debt? Whoa. Today, unemployment is soaring and the stock market is unemployment is soaring and the stock market is sinking. 401ks have been cut in half. Anybody testify to that? Yeah. Still, interest rates remain at historic lows. Interest rates are low. What happens when interest rates go higher? Today, nearly every bank in America is bankrupt on paper. Proof positive. We can prove this. And our national debt stands at a whopping $11 trillion. And the price of America's energy source, oil, stands at a ridiculously low price. What happens when oil goes back to where we think it might go? How many of you think oil is going to continue to be cheap for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Despite the massive bailouts and the reactionary government spending of the last 8 years, inflation remains astonishingly low. Inflation has not hit yet. It's coming. Nearly all the barrels of oil that America sells, they have to denominate them in what? Dollars. What happens